Close your eyes for a moment, and imagine this scene. A young woman stands in front of a mirror. She's wearing her best clothes. But she can barely look at herself. Her lips tremble as she whispers, "I am not good enough." How many times have we felt this? Before an interview, before stepping on a stage, before making an important decision. That inner voice, the one that says, "You can't do it, you'll fail. People will laugh." It has destroyed more dreams than any outside obstacle. But here's the truth: self-confidence is not the absence of fear. It is the courage to walk forward despite fear. Today, I want to share with you the life of a woman whose journey from silence to strength, from doubt to confidence, will show you that the power to transform your life is already within you. This is Aisha's story. And perhaps, it is your story too. Aisha grew up in a small, conservative town. From childhood, she was bright, curious, and loved books. She dreamed of becoming a lawyer someday, fighting for justice, standing in courtrooms with strength. But her world constantly reminded her of limits. Relatives said, "Girls don't need to study so much. What's the use?" Neighbors whispered, "Her parents are wasting money on her education." Even in school, when she raised her hand with answers, boys laughed. "Why are you showing off? Just stay quiet." Slowly, little by little, she began to shrink. She stopped answering in class. She began walking with her head down. She buried her dreams deep inside. But in the quiet of the night, when no one was watching, she would write in her diary, "One day, I will stand tall. One day, I will be free." In college, Aisha remained shy. She had ideas, but her voice was small. Opportunities came, but fear held her back. One day, her teacher announced a debate competition. Everyone expected the confident students to participate. But to Aisha's surprise, her teacher looked at her and said, "You should join. I see something in you." Aisha froze. Me, a debate? In front of people? Her heart screamed, "No." But something in her whispered, "Maybe." She went home, thinking about it all night. She looked in the mirror and saw the same scared girl. But this time, she asked herself, "If not now, then when? If not me, then who?" The next 2 weeks changed her life. She practiced every night in front of the mirror. At first her voice cracked. She forgot lines. She cried. She almost gave up. But then, she remembered the words her teacher once told her. Confidence doesn't mean you are never afraid. Confidence means speaking even when your voice shakes. So, she practiced again. This time she held her head high. She spoke louder. She reminded herself, "The audience is not my enemy. They are just people like me." The day of the competition arrived. Her legs trembled as she walked to the stage. She gripped the paper so tightly her hands hurt. The audience looked at her. For a moment, she thought of running away, but then, she took a deep breath and whispered to herself, "I am enough. I belong here." And she began. Part 40. The Breakthrough 20-25 minutes. At first, her voice shook. Some people in the back even giggled. But she didn't stop, word after word. Her voice grew stronger. Suddenly, something shifted. The audience leaned in. They were listening. Her confidence grew with every sentence. By the end of her speech, her voice carried through the hall, steady, powerful, unstoppable. When she finished, there was silence, and then thunderous applause. Tears filled her eyes. She hadn't just won the debate. She had won something greater. Belief in herself. That day, Aisha walked off the stage taller than she had ever walked before. That one moment became the seed of a new life. Aisha started participating in more events. She applied for leadership positions. She helped organize workshops for other young women who felt voiceless. Years later, she became a successful lawyer, just as she had dreamed. She stood in courtrooms, fighting with courage. She opened an organization to mentor young girls, teaching them the same lesson she had once learned. If you don't believe in yourself, the world won't either. Confidence is your shield, your strength, your power. At an international women's conference, thousands of people gathered to hear her story. She stood on stage once more, but this time there was no fear, no trembling. She looked at the audience and said, "I am living proof that self-confidence can change everything. And if I can do it, so can you." The hall erupted in applause, but in her heart, she smiled quietly, because she knew she had fulfilled the promise. She once wrote in her diary as a little girl, "One day, I will stand tall." Self-confidence is not given, it is built. Every failure is practice for the next victory. One decision, one moment of courage, can change the course of your entire life. When a woman finds her confidence, she not only changes her life, but becomes an inspiration for generations. Think for a moment about the most powerful words you can ever tell yourself. It's not, "I'm smart." It's not, "I'm strong." It's this, "I believe in myself." Because the truth is, the world will always have opinions. Some will cheer for you, others will laugh at you. But at the end of the day, the question is simple. Do you believe in you? Now imagine a young woman named Zara. She's sitting at her study table late at night. The house is quiet, the world is asleep. In front of her lies a blank sheet of paper. She wants to draw, she wants to dream, but her hands freeze. In her mind, she hears the voices of others. Girls don't build careers. You're aiming too high. It's impossible. Tears fill her eyes. She closes the notebook, but just before she puts her pen down, she whispers softly, "What if I believe in myself? Even when nobody else does?" That whisper was the start of a revolution. Zara was born in a small town where tradition was heavy, and opportunities for girls were light. From a young age, she loved building things with her hands, stacking blocks, drawing houses, sketching bridges. Her father would smile, but her relatives would laugh. "She's wasting her time. Architecture is not for girls." In school she was bright. She always had answers. But whenever she raised her hand, boys would snicker. Teachers sometimes ignored her. Slowly, Zara began lowering her hand, lowering her voice, lowering her dreams. One day, she overheard a neighbor telling her mother, "Why do you let her study so much? She'll get married, and all this will be wasted." That night Zara cried, but instead of giving up, she wrote in her diary, "They don't see me now. But one day, they will." Zara entered college with small hopes but big fears. She rarely spoke in class. She avoided the spotlight. But in the quiet of her room, she filled notebook after notebook with sketches of buildings. She dreamed of designing schools for children who had none, homes for families who lived on the streets. She wanted to create a world where everyone had a place to belong. But dreams without confidence are like birds without wings. She kept her sketches hidden, afraid people would laugh. Until one day, her professor announced a competition: design a sustainable housing model for low-income families. The class buzzed with excitement. Names of top students floated around. Nobody thought of Zara. Nobody except her professor, who said quietly, "Zara, I think you should participate." She froze. Me? Present in front of people? Compete against them? I can't. But that night, she opened her diary and wrote, "If I don't believe in myself now, I never will." The weeks of preparation were a battlefield. Zara stayed up late sketching, erasing, and starting over. Her model collapsed more than once. She doubted herself daily. Her friends mocked her. "Why are you wasting time? You'll embarrass yourself." Her relatives smirked. "This is not for you." Each word was like a stone added to her shoulders. But each time she thought of quitting, she whispered, "Believe in yourself, Zara. Just believe." One night, exhausted, she looked at her unfinished model and said out loud, "I don't care if they laugh. I'm doing this for me." And that single decision gave her the strength to continue. The competition day arrived. The hall was filled with students, judges, and murmurs. Zara clutched her model, her heart pounding. When her name was called, she felt her legs tremble. For a moment, she thought of running. But then she remembered her diary, her late nights, her whisper, "I believe in myself." She walked to the stage. At first, her voice was small. A few people giggled. But then she lifted her head, took a deep breath, and spoke from her heart. She explained not just her design, but her vision: a world where even the poorest could live with dignity. She spoke of hope, of possibility, of change. By the time she finished, the room was silent, and then, applause thundered. Judges nodded. Students stared in awe. Days later, results came. Zara had won. But the real victory wasn't the award. It was the moment she realized, "Believing in myself changed my world." That victory lit a fire. Zara began speaking up in class. She joined projects, took leadership roles, and encouraged other young women to dream big. Her confidence grew. Not because life got easier, but because she had learned to trust herself. Years later, she became one of the country's most respected architects. She designed schools, hospitals, and homes for families who once had none. Her projects weren't just buildings. They were messages carved in stone. You belong. You matter. You can dream. At an international conference, thousands of people listened as she shared her story. She looked at the crowd and said, "The world told me I couldn't. And for years, I believed them. But the day I believed in myself, everything changed. And if you believe in yourself, you can change your world too." The applause shook the hall. But for Zara, the real joy was seeing young women come up to her with tears in their eyes, saying, Because of you, I will not give up. Because of you, I believe in me. Believing in yourself is the first step to changing your destiny. Fear doesn't disappear. Courage grows stronger. The world changes when one person dares to rise. A woman's belief in herself inspires generations. Confidence is not arrogance. It is faith in your own light. Have you ever had a dream so strong, but a voice inside your head whispered, "You can't do this. You're not ready. People will laugh." That voice is not the truth. That voice is fear. Now imagine this: a young woman named Amina, standing backstage, her heart racing. Hundreds of people wait in the hall. She knows her turn is next. Her hands are trembling. She feels her knees weaken. She almost whispers to herself, "I don't belong here." But then she remembers something her mentor once told her. Confidence is not about being fearless. Confidence is about walking forward, even when fear walks beside you. She takes a deep breath, steps forward, and that single moment changes the rest of her life. Stay with me, because Amina's story is not just about one woman. It's about every one of us who has ever doubted ourselves, yet secretly wished to rise. Amina grew up in a small town. She was intelligent, curious, always asking questions, but she was shy. At family gatherings, she stayed in the corner. At school, she knew answers but rarely raised her hand. She loved reading, writing, and sketching ideas, but sharing them out loud, impossible. People around her reinforced that silence. Girls should be quiet. Don't dream too big. Let others take the stage. One day, during class, she whispered an idea to her friend. Another student overheard, shouted it out, and the teacher praised him. Amina smiled faintly, but inside, her heart sank. That night she wrote in her diary, "I have ideas. I have dreams. But no one will ever know, unless I find my voice." In college, an opportunity came. A national speech competition. Her professor encouraged her, "Amina, you should try." She almost laughed. "Me? On stage? Never." But the professor leaned in and said, "Confidence is not something you're born with. It is something you build. And you can build it, Amina." That night, she thought about it. She imagined herself standing on stage speaking. She felt fear, but also a spark. She signed up. The preparation was harder than she imagined. She practiced in front of a mirror, forgetting her lines. She froze when rehearsing in front of friends. She cried when relatives mocked her. "You, a speaker. You'll embarrass yourself." Every night, she wanted to quit. But each time, she looked in her diary and whispered, "Confidence is my secret to success. If I give up, I'll never change my life." So she kept practicing, small steps, reading aloud, asking a question in class, volunteering for tiny responsibilities. Each small act built her courage. Finally, the competition day arrived. The hall was filled with students, teachers, judges, and cameras. Amina's name was called. Her heart raced, her legs felt heavy, she almost froze. But then she closed her eyes and whispered, "Confidence is not about being fearless. It's about acting despite fear." She stepped onto the stage. At first, her voice trembled. A few people giggled. But then she lifted her chin, focused on her words, and began to speak from her heart. She spoke about the power of women's education, about courage, about breaking limits. Slowly, the hall grew silent. People leaned in. They were not laughing. They were listening. By the end, her voice was steady, powerful, unstoppable. And when she finished, the room erupted in applause. Amina stood there in shock. For the first time in her life, she felt truly seen. She didn't just win the competition. She won herself back. That moment changed everything. She began speaking at college events. She volunteered for leadership roles. She mentored younger students who were afraid to speak. Every stage she stood on, every challenge she took, made her confidence grow stronger. One day, a girl approached her after a workshop and said, "Because of you, I spoke up today." I didn't hide. Amina smiled. She realized her confidence was not just changing her life. It was changing others too. Part 6C. Unstoppable Success. 35 minutes. Years later, Amina became a successful entrepreneur and motivational speaker. She built her own company, employed people, and traveled the world inspiring women. At an international women's summit, standing before thousands, she shared her journey. She began with these words: "I was once a girl who hid in silence. The world told me to stay small. But the moment I discovered confidence, I discovered my power. And that confidence became the secret to every success I achieved." The audience gave her a standing ovation. Women lined up after her speech, saying, "Because of you, I believe I can. Because of you, I will no longer be silent." Amina realized her greatest achievement wasn't awards or business success. It was this: helping others unlock their own confidence. She started a foundation for women, training them in public speaking, leadership, and entrepreneurship. Thousands of women benefited, each one becoming more confident, each one unstoppable in her own way. Looking back at her life, Amina smiled and whispered to her younger self, "See, you were always enough. You just needed confidence to believe it." A confidence is not fearlessness. It is courage in the presence of fear. Every small step builds unstoppable confidence. Without confidence, talent hides. With confidence, talent shines. One woman's confidence can inspire generations. Confidence is the true secret to unstoppable success.